Hello everybody, my name is Niels Engelen. I am a system engineer at Veeam Software, and in this small getting started video I will show you how you can get started with Veeam Backup and Replication after the installation. In this video I will demonstrate how you can add your vCenter, how to configure your backup repository for storing your backups, and I'll explain to you how you can configure additional proxies which are connected to your storage for making the backups, and of course we will add a backup job and run it to see that everything is working successfully. After the installation is finished, you can start up Veeam Backup and Replication. The first thing you will have to do before you can back up your virtual machines is add either a vCenter server or a Hyper-V server. You can do this by going to the backup infrastructure and then select Add Server. As you can see, there is a list of servers which can be added, which contains either a VMware vSphere server, which can be a vCenter, or a single hypervisor. You can add a vCloud Director environment, a Hyper-V server, or if for storing a data, you can add, for example, a Microsoft Windows server or a Linux server. To get started, I will add a vCenter server. When you add your vCenter server, there will be a request for credentials. These are needed so that we can list the environment which you are going to back up. For this, you can use a credential manager, which is a new feature in version 7. As you can see, you can add an extra username or with an additional password. For example, you can make a user specific for Veeam in your domain. As you can see, the server is added successfully and we just have to click finish. Once this is set up, you will have to configure a repository where you will store your backups. You can do this by selecting backup repositories in your backup infrastructure. By default, there will be a default backup repository which is configured on your local disk on the local server. You can add an additional repository server and name it. This can be a different type of server. It can be a Windows server or a Linux server. As soon as you select one of the types, you will have to add the new server. As you can see, I'm adding a new Linux server here. And for a Linux server, you will have to provide a username so an SSH connection can be made. Once the server is added, you will have to provide a path on the specific server where you will store your backups. The next thing that they ask you is to enable vPower NFS. It is recommended. Basically, what will happen is that we use vPower to run virtual machines directly from backup, which is our instant recovery. We use it for sure backup or on-demand sandboxes, our universal application item recovery, and of course our multi-operating system file library store, which means Linux or Novel or any other type of supported operating system. And as you can see, in just a few seconds my backup repository has been created, and I can continue on with the next step, which is configuring a backup proxy. By default, there is one proxy defined, which is the server which is running Veeam Backup and Replication. And then you can select two backup proxies which you can add. So you can add a VMware backup proxy, or you can say I want a Hyper-V off-host backup proxy. Adding a VMware proxy server is exactly the same when you are configuring a backup repository. When I select add a new VMware proxy, I get the option to choose an existing server, but since I didn't add it yet, I will add it now. As you can see, you have to fill in the DNS name or the IP address of a specific server. In my lab, I have used one specific server as a proxy server, but you can use any type of Windows server, so it doesn't have to be specific for only proxy service. I select my credentials again. Make sure that it is a domain account so that you can log into it. It is also possible to use a local account, but it is advised to use a domain for this. As you can see, it's very fast installed. It took about 32 seconds for the full installation of the product. And after that, you're being pushed back to the configuration of the VMware proxy. You can define the transport mode and the connected data stores again, and you can define the maximum concurrent tasks. This is defined or advised regarding the number of CPU cores you have. One CPU core means one task, so the more CPU cores you have, the more tasks you can create or run at the same time. Again, you can define traffic throttling if this would be required for your infrastructure or not. And as you can see, the server is now added. In my backup repositories, I have my repository, which is a Linux server, and underneath managed service, I have my vCenter server with my hypervisors. Now that everything is configured, you can create your first backup job. To do this, you have to go to the backup and replication window, and you can click the backup job button, or you can right click and say select backup, so you can create a backup. In the first window, you can give the backup job a specific name and a description. In the second window, you will have to add the virtual machines which you want to back up. To do this, you can select add, and the way you can add objects is exactly the same as you can see it in your VMware vSphere client. You can do it based on hosts and clusters, you can do it on virtual machines and template, or you can add a full data store. The positive thing about using, for example, directories or a full cluster is that as soon as you add a virtual machine in the environment, Veeam will immediately pick it up and make a backup of it. It's also the same that if you remove a virtual machine, it will also be removed from the backups when the retention is made or ended, and the backup will be deleted. On the third tab, you'll have to choose which backup proxy you can use. It is advised to just use automatic selection unless there is a specific reason to not use automatic selection. For example, if you have a specific data store which is only connected to one proxy, then you have to say use the backup proxy specified below. The other thing you have to configure is a backup repository where you want to store it. If you have more backup repositories, you can just select it. You have to define how many backups or restore points you want to keep, for example 5. For now I'm going to keep it at this point, and I'm going to leave the settings as they are. I will make another video regarding the advanced settings with a more technical deep dive. Another thing you can do is guest processing. For example, you can enable application-aware image processing. That means that, for example, if you have Microsoft SQL Server or you have an Exchange, that you can process the logs. Another option in this is enable guest file system indexing. This is useful for the one-click restore of individual files. It is not required to perform instant file level recoveries. If you enable guest file system indexing, you will have to provide a credential for the operating system, which you can configure through the credential manager. Finally, you can define settings when you want to run the job. If you want to run the job automatically, that is, you can say I want to run it daily at a specific time for every day, or on weekdays, or on specific days. You can say I want to run it monthly, every third or fourth Monday or Tuesday. Or you can say I want to run it every hour, or you can say every minute or constantly. Or if you have extra jobs, you can select after a specific job that you want to run this job. For example, you can make a backup directly to your backup storage, and if you have a tape device, you could define that your tape job runs directly or a few minutes after that specific disk job has stopped. You can also define that the retry attempt, for example, if a virtual machine already has a snapshot or there is a problem with it, you can define that it has to retry 3 times, and you can say that it has to wait, for example, 10 minutes before trying again. And if you are running a schedule which has a tight backup window, you can say I want to stop the job, for example, when it takes longer than the time I have, for example, in 6 in the morning. And as you can see, when I click create, there is a small summary, and you can say run the job when I click finish. And as soon as you click the job, you will see job progress already here, which says that the job started at a specific timestamp, that the virtual machine list is being built, and the backup will be performed in the meantime. You can also click on the statistics windows to get the same information. As you can see, I have a virtual machine called 1 and SQL 01, and the servers are now being processed. And if you select one of the specific virtual machines, you can see more information on that specific virtual machine. For example, you can see that the configuration in this machine is saved, that a snapshot is made, and that hot-add is being used to store that specific backup. You can also see that the backup proxy, as defines proxy 01, is being used. On this server, VMware Backup Proxy, which is a default proxy, is being used. This is the fact that I did not disable the default proxy. It is advised to do this in your environment as a best practice. And as you can see, after a few minutes, the backup job is successfully run. The duration of my job was, for example, 8 minutes in total for 2 virtual machines. A new feature which we have added in version 7 is a small throughput window here, which is being updated during the job, and in the end you get an all-time review. When the job is done, you can of course see which virtual machine was successfully, which one had a warning, or if there was an error, which one had an error, and specifically which one you have, like success, warning, or error. You can get more information by selecting that virtual machine. And for example, if I select the first server in my list, I will see that my primary bottleneck would be the proxy server, and that I will have to take a look at it, how I can improve that. For the second one example, that one says that the network would be an issue, which could be true because I'm running a lab and this is not a real production environment with a high-end connection. And this concludes the first setup. So we have configured the vCenter server, we have configured our backup repository, as well as a proxy server, and we created our first backup job with basic settings, and it was a successful run.